Henry McKenna for president. I'd vote for you. What's the deal with Henry McKenna? Well, I mean a lot. There's a lot going on here with this particular bottle. We're going to talk about it. I'll tell you a little bit of what I'm tasting in a little bit. First, let's just get into this thing. Why does this bottle matter? Well, first it matters because of what it is. Henry McKenna is a 10-year-old bourbon. That's awesome. I mean, 10 years is awesome. You go and you look at the bourbon shelf, and you're not going to find many 10-year age-stated bourbons that are reasonably priced. Bullet 10-year would be one, but for whatever reason, people don't buy that too much. You should, actually. I'm not doing this video on Bullet 10-year bourbon, but it's pretty good. You should try it. So we got a 10-year-old bourbon here. That's awesome. This is a great place to start. 10 years old. Sweet. And it's from Heaven Hill Distillery. Heaven Hill is the largest family-owned and operated distillery in the United States of America. They know their whiskey. They make a butt ton of whiskey. Largest family-owned distillery in the United States. You ever go to Bardstown, Kentucky, just right on the edge of Bardstown there is Heaven Hill's visitor center and storage facility, and man, Rick House on Rick House. Good grief. This is also a bottled in bond whiskey, it says right there on the label. And if you're into bourbon at all, you know what bottled in bond is. It has to be aged at least 4 years, bottled at 100 proof, the product of one distilling season, stored under the watchful eye of the government in a bonded warehouse. It's the good stuff. So it's 10 years old, bottled in bond. Wow, okay. Check 2 boxes for a bourbon geek. The mash bill on this sucker is the typical Heaven Hill mash bill that is 78% corn, 10% rye, 12% malted barley. So a rye bourbon, but relatively low rye in the grand scheme of things. This is a single barrel bourbon, meaning that every single bottle you get may taste a little bit different. That's one of the funky things about Henry McKenna, is that while it's generally lauded as good, which is why you kind of can't find it right now, there's some variability from bottle to bottle. Some can be extraordinary. Others are like, it's pretty good. I had one I was like not a fan of. It was pretty early in my bourbon journey. So I don't know if I tasted that same thing again today. Would I have any problems with it, or would I be like, oh, this is pretty good? I don't know. But given that it's a single barrel product, you just might find some oscillation in your approval or disapproval of the quality of the bourbon. Although I really think generally, if you're going to be like, Henry McKenna sucks because it's variable from bottle to bottle, you got to stick up your butt. Just calm down. Like, there are a lot of single barrel products, and this one is one of the better ones in terms of quality, consistency of quality. All right, and this is where we start to get into, like, why is Henry McKenna a big deal? Well, because up until like a year and a half ago, this thing was only $30, 10-year-old, 100 proof, single barrel, bottled in bond, bourbon for $30. That's an unbelievable deal. Like, you can't afford not to buy that. And as recently as 3 years ago, this thing was just sitting on the shelf at $30. I remember I could have bought an infinite amount of it. It would be what some of us might call a shelf turd. Sure, it was respected, but you could always find it. It sat on the shelf. And part of that is probably because this is just a wretched bottle. It's just not good looking. Like beige, that background beige color. Not a great green. Yeah, not good. Shape of the bottle, not sexy. It's just kind of what you picture 1994 bourbon to look like. Henry McKenna bottle. But in spite of its low price, its shelf turd status, and its ugly bottle, the bourbon inside was dope. Then in 2018, all hell started to break loose. Pandora's box was open when in the 2018 San Francisco Spirit Awards, Henry McKenna won Best Bourbon. So Best Bourbon in the United States, obviously, because bourbon only comes from the United States. And that seemed to be like, oh, wow, that's kind of crazy that this product won Best Bourbon. I mean, it's not a limited release or anything. It's a shelf turd. And so the immediate reaction among us bourbon geeks was like, oh yeah, that's the bottle that we know of, that we like, that we've had a couple of in the past. Maybe I should get an extra one in case we can't find it. And so there was some initial fanfare. Henry McKenna won Best Bourbon. Oh, it was a single barrel. It was probably a fantastic barrel that won that award. But it came and went and all was fine. In the meantime, bourbon pundits, what is that word? Bourbon geeks who have podcasts and magazines and write stuff, I mean, would talk about, hey, this is a really amazing value. Like, why are we just letting it sit there when we're like paying tons of money for other bourbons? And then 2019 rolls around in the San Francisco Spirit Award competition. And not only does Henry McKenna win Best Bourbon, but it wins Best Whiskey in the world. So, take a step back here. Going into, I mean, in my bourbon experience, 2016, 2017, and then we get into 2018, 2019, we start to see an escalation of prices for quality bourbon. For bourbon in general, but for the good stuff, it's getting more expensive. Not only that, but we're seeing the dropping of age statements. Like Knob Creek had dropped its age statement. Elijah Craig 12 dropped its age statement. So Henry McKenna is sitting there, still at $30 with an age statement. It wins in 2018. Then after the win in 2019, the world got wise, and like within 2 days, you couldn't find Henry McKenna anywhere. It was gone. I guess I'm not getting any more. We quickly resigned ourselves to the fact that there were people who could afford to go buy a couple cases of Henry McKenna that cleared the shelves, and they've been clear ever since. Henry McKenna is now released in some stores' raffles, or as soon as it hits the shelf, it's bought up because somebody decided they need to have 30 bottles of Henry McKenna bunkered. So that's the deal with Henry McKenna. I mean, that's the short of the story. It's a great bourbon that won a couple of awards, and because of our unquenchable need to have what we might not have in the future, you can't find it. It's just not on the shelf anymore. So sorry. I did not buy a case. Yeah, as you can see behind me, I've got 3 after this one. So did I buy some? No, actually. After it won in 2019, I think I had 2. And then I bought 1 when I saw it again and 1 when I saw it again. So I've seen it, I think, twice since it won Best Whiskey in the World in 2019. Which is a bummer that I haven't seen more of it, but I tend to follow my policy, buy 1, leave whatever's left for the next guy. Unfortunately, the next guy is probably buying the 5 I left behind. Now let's talk about how this tastes. Is it worth all the fanfare? Well, yeah, I think it is. For the value, it's not $30 anymore. Generally, you're going to find it for $40 to $50. But it's still worth it compared to what else is on the shelf and what other bourbons are going for. I get a ton of sweetness, just a little bit of spice, but it's rich. It's got just like the right amount of oakiness. It's kind of buttery. This particular one is buttery with some roasted almonds, like milk chocolate on this guy. So yeah, if you ever saw a bottle of Henry McKenna for less than $50, I think you should buy it. All right, before we hang this up, we're going to do a little bit of a taste off here. I like this bottle of Henry McKenna. I've had it open for a while, savoring it because I think it's a pretty dang good barrel. I also really like Elijah Craig, and this is the old bottle style, non-rear age stated, so right after they remove the age statement from the back. This is a 1.75 that I bought for $47, which is an incredible deal. And I've had one of these from this time that was amazing. Really, really good, super value bourbon. So we're going to taste them side by side. Same distillery, Elijah Craig and Henry McKenna, both from Heaven Hill Distillery. age should be very, very similar. Remember, Elijah Craig used to be 12 years old, Henry McKenna at 10. They dropped the age statement here. The average is probably around 10 years old. I look at color, and color doesn't really matter. So, like, your eyes don't tell you what you're going to taste. Your tongue does. That said, the Elijah Craig actually does look a little bit darker than the Henry McKenna. But this room is very, very red, so it's hard to tell. Like, anytime in reviews, when people are like, well, the color is kind of like an amber or like a red. Of course, it's all red. It's all reddish, brownish, amberish. That's the color of bourbon. Just save yourself the time in your reviews and don't talk about the color. Oof, wow. I'm getting way more like nostril power on this Elijah Craig. It is a little more spicy and oaky and sweet on the nose. I mean, it smells fantastic. Whereas the Henry McKenna, it's just soft. Soft and sweet. Man, it's good. This is good. But this is really good. I don't know what went into this particular batch of Elijah Craig small batch, but dang, it's really fantastic. Brown sugar, cinnamon, a little clove up in there, but just like really robust flavor, enough oak, but not drying at all. And this one finishes all day. This one kind of gets a little bit, almost like young on the finish. Gets a little hot. You know, the sweetness and kind of slick mouthfeel fades away pretty quick, and you're left with not maybe the best finish here. Whereas this one is like dessert. This is, you want to pour yourself one of these up to here and just sit by a fire and sip this one. Both fantastic whiskeys, but dang. If you find any of the old Elijah Craig, even in this bottle style, I'd spend up to, you know, $40 for a 750. And if you can find one of the big, I mean, what I see still around is these 175s. Buy one. You won't be sorry. If you like this video, just jump down and like the video. Leave me a comment. Send me a suggestion for a show, topic, question, idea, complaint, I don't care. Send me some suggestions and I'll talk about them in front of my whiskey wall here. You can follow me at Drew P, D-R-E-W-P, whiskey, with an E-Y, on Instagram. At Drew P Whiskey on Instagram. I post some stuff on there from time to time. But be sure to subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos talking about mainly bourbon. I've got some rye, got a couple scotches, but bourbon's kind of my jam. So stay tuned because Thanksgiving's coming up. And I've got some suggestions. You want to have a great bourbon with you on Thanksgiving, so you need to do your work in advance. Like prepare a little bit. Set the menu. I've got you covered. I'll help you out. So check back in a week. See ya.